Hello and welcome into another edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hickson. I'm your lead beat writer for the Arizona State Sun Devils on SI, and I'm so grateful to be joining you once again on this great Saturday afternoon. And um, as of this recording, we are about 5 hours out from Arizona State men's basketball taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Just a few hours removed from the Arizona State women's basketball team suffering an unfortunate loss at the hands of Cincinnati on the road. Big weekend for Arizona State athletics as a whole. This is a must-win game for the men's program. If you've tuned into the podcast or seen any content that spread over social media over the last couple of days, Uh, there's not really a lack of better term than things are looking pretty hopeless within the Arizona State men's basketball program. Bobby Hurley sounded the most dejected that he has ever sounded as Arizona State's head coach. Fans of the program know that Hurley typically uses the post-game press conferences to air grievances about how the game went, particularly in the form of the refs, to air out some frustrations about how things are operating in the conference or anything in between. And he just sounded dejected. He said that he doesn't feel as if he's getting through to the team and that he doesn't really see any light at the end of the tunnel. So, uh, Monday's episode of the Sun Devils Insider podcast will be discussing likely the angle of whether Arizona State has a light at the end of the tunnel this season or that their season is pretty much over. I'd say, for lack of better verbiage, if they lose to uh, Cincinnati tonight. That leads me into the main point of today's show. So everybody knows what we are now about a week removed from the Indiana Hoosiers winning their first national title. We've had that discussion as to whether Arizona State has the ability to be the next program to climb up in those ranks of teams that make a meteoric rise from. I would never say Arizona State. I would never say Arizona State's been a bad program, but they were very, very hamstrung by the Herm Edwards era. And I think if any coach can replicate what Kurt Signetti did at Indiana, it's probably Kenny Dillingham. That leads me into talking about Arizona State's ability to be a top 25 caliber team in 2026. Most of you have probably seen it. ESPN came out with a way too early top 25 ranking. The Sun Devils did come in at number 23. I believe they were the fifth ranked team out of the Big 12 in those rankings. I believe they were behind Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and I think Houston was in it. But that just really highlights that Arizona State is still viewed positively by a lot of the country, despite losing Sam Levitt, despite several players heading to the NFL draft or running out of eligibility. There's still belief that this team, that this roster will be able to compete in the Big 12 this next season. And I tend to agree with that. I'm still skeptical as to whether Arizona State will actually be going to the season ranked or not. I think they definitely have a good argument to be, and I think that even if they aren't, they will be in the receive votes category. But there are a few questions that have to be answered, I think, particularly in the quarterback situation. It's probably going to be a four-way battle between Cutter Boley, Mikey Keene, the two transfers that came in, as well as returning freshman Cameron Dyer and incoming freshman Jake Fetty. I think all four of them will receive an opportunity to distinguish themselves. And I think that no matter who's selected, I think that the roster around them is strong enough to warrant that kind of consideration going into the season. I also think that the level of competition they're going to face makes it a steep climb to actually finish this season in that manner. They do play Texas Tech, Texas A&M, BYU, and Arizona, four teams that have a high probability of being ranked on the road. All those games are on the road. And they also play Kansas in the Big 12 opener in London. So, pretty challenging slate of games they have this season, especially when you put location into account. It's it's going to be an interesting season because I don't think anybody's expecting Arizona State to be that Indiana figure of 2026 because they've already risen back into national prominence and they did not have a weak enough season leading into Indiana really made that jump from 2023 to 2024 out of nowhere. Arizona State had the 2023 season under Kenny Dillingham, and then they made that leap. I don't really think that's comparable, but I do think they do have the pieces in place to win another Big 12 title. I mean, BYU is going to be returning Bear Bachmeier. Texas Tech, once again, has a very potent defense. They added Brendan Sorsby, which is probably an upgrade at quarterback. And Utah is returning Devin Dampier along with some other key contributors, even though they lose two top tackles. Uh, a lot of those teams have more returning infrastructure, but the way Arizona State attacked the transfer portal, the way that they have built up every single incoming freshman class over the last 3 years with intention, the fact that several returning players, including Martell Hughes, have proven themselves to be in battle tested category, in the battle tested category heading into the season. I think that all of those factors spell a positive outlook for Arizona State this season. And I do think that them being ranked inside of the top 25 is absolutely justified at the moment. I'd probably, I mean, it's a way too early top 25 for a reason. There's still a lot of things to be ironed out, a lot of uh, I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed before the start of the season. But you can see exactly what the coaching staff is doing. You, I think that I have a good scope of what will happen in spring practice. I think that the intention that they approach the roster building with will shine through in due time. And until then, we'll just see things play out. The quarterback battle, the positioning for placement on the two deep on both offense and defense, particularly looking at the offensive line and defensive line, as well as some of the more unheralded transfers that the program added, like a Josiah McGrew. I think that those players will really distinguish themselves in the months ahead. Until then, Arizona State's 2026 season opener is set for September 5th against Morgan State. Uh, Spring practices are set to commence in late March, and the summer practices are set to commence in late July. Until then, I'll keep on updating you with everything Arizona State football and basketball and everything in between. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Sun Devils Insider podcast, and I will see you with another episode tomorrow. Thank you so much.